So, ladies and gentlemen, you are locked on Falcons. I'm your host, Aaron Freeman, and today I'm joined by Adam Holloway, a returning guest from the ATB Falcons. And we're going to be talking about Deebo Samuel trade rumors and whether the Falcons should be interested in that. Best player available, the pros and cons of that, and we'll get Adam's thoughts on maybe some Falcons targets that he would love to see the team draft in this 2022 NFL draft.
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So, guys, you know me, I'm Aaron Freeman, been covering the Falcons for many years, formerly at falcfans.com, RIP, still going strong on Twitter, at falcfans, and of course, the host of this illustrious Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And of course, Locked On Falcons is also part of the Locked On Sports Atlanta podcast family, which I want to thank everyone that makes Locked On Falcons their first listen each and every day. And of course, Locked On Falcons, just like all Locked On Sports Atlanta shows, are free and available on a variety of podcast platforms, including Apple, Odyssey, Google, Spotify, and of course on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Falcons on YouTube, and you will get the video version of the podcast the night before the audio drops first thing in the morning. And today I am joined by Adam Holloway. You know him as Damsky32 on Twitter. He's the guy that's always doing Twitter spaces, and they always devolve into some argument about some prospect that some people want the Falcons draft and other people don't want the Falcons draft. But he's here with us to talk a little bit more about some players that he wants the Falcons draft. But before we get into that, we'll talk a little bit about, Deebo Samuel trade rumors and whether or not the Falcons should be in on that. But Adam, my friend, welcome back to the show.
I'm excited. I would be excited, like, if it's an actual thing. Like, I also very meh on the whole situation, because it's like we swung and missed before on a guy. Like, not saying I did or didn't want him, but I mean, it just seems like Atlanta is always in on these guys, like Chandler Jones, and then a couple of years ago it was like another big name guy. I forget who it was. But we're always in on these guys, and it just never comes to fruition. Atlanta can never, pull that final string to land them. But, like, I mean, don't get me wrong, Deebo Samuel, the player, like, he's one of the most electrifying players in the NFL. So, I mean, anytime that you have the ability to pull a trigger on a guy like that, and you talk about a team that struggles to put butts in seats, like Deebo Samuel gets you out of your seat. So, I mean, I think that would be a great situation for us. But I know a lot of people don't like it because, the draft capital that you'd have to give up and, the extension that he'd have to sign. But I'm just under the impression of, like, let's just get good players. I don't really care how we do it. But at this point, like, I'd rather, at least I'm paying a good player and I know I'm getting a good player, as opposed to, oh, this guy's been in the league 5 years. He's had one good year of production. Let's pay him all of the money, like, kind of like Dante Fowler. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, at least, like, he's young. He's a dynamic player. And, Arthur Smith, at the very least, last year showed that he can use players in a multitude of ways, like Cordero Patterson. And even to a lesser extent, Kyle Pitts, because he's primarily basically the X receiver last year, and he was able to manufacture him some catches on the boundary there, as well as in line. So, I mean, at least, like, at the very least, Arthur Smith showed that he can get guys the ball in a multitude of ways. I will say, though, the one most intriguing thing of the whole thing is Deebo saying that he just wants to be a receiver. And if that's the case, I might be a little bit lower on that acquisition, because I love that. And me and you have talked about it. Like, I've said, I think the league should go to more of a positionless style of offenses, where guys are just kind of playing all over and not really pegged into, like, an X or a Y or a Z, or, an inline tight end or this or that. Because it just makes it more fun, and it creates more mismatches and stuff like that. That's why I don't really understand Deebo's stance. I get, like, if you don't want to be, like, a straight up running back kind of thing, because that can take a toll on you. But it's not like he's getting 20 touches a game anyways. He's still getting, I think, like 10, 12, 13 touches. So, I mean, he's not getting worn down that much. But it definitely makes it interesting. But, yeah, he'd be dynamic. I mean, he'd be pretty exciting from what we got around here currently, right? So, what are your thoughts on old Deebo Samuel? I think the like what we'd have to pay for him would be significant. Would be the issue.
Yeah, I mean, because when you look at San Francisco, it's him and George Kittle are their 1-2 punch in their
Mhm.
offense, and to give that up, particularly now that you have Trey Lance, and the whole reason for you to go get Trey Lance is basically because you thought he was the quarterback that would put your offense over the top. So trading away one of your best players doesn't make a lot of sense if that was your overall strategy a year ago.
Mhm.
So like I've been a big fan of Debo since he was at South Carolina. But like I just don't see any pathway where that's realistic where the Falcons would get, because if you're San Francisco, like you're going to look at that Tyreek Hill trade and be like, give us 5
Yeah.
picks, including first, second, third, all this stuff. So you're basically trading away all your draft capital if you're the Falcons for the next 2 years. And then you got to pay him, I don't know, 25. He's got to break the Stephon Diggs contract or whatever that he just signed for like
Yeah.
24 million a year. And so like it makes sense if you felt like you were a wide receiver, or let's say in Debo's case, an offensive weapon away. But I think most of us know that the Falcons aren't that team. So as fun as it would be and exciting he would be and would make the offense better, it is one of those things where like it doesn't seem like the Falcons are in that position. But this what happens. The NFL's been crazy this offseason, and anytime some player becomes available, and this is how it always works, is like you're like, what could he be, in Atlanta or whatever the case may be? And it's like, yeah, sure, it's fun to fantasize about, but it's probably not going to happen. So I wouldn't
Yeah.
spend too much more time worrying
That's what
about
I was saying yesterday. I was like, the NFL offseason was so crazy that 2 of the best receivers in football got traded, and that wasn't even the biggest headlines. Like, it's absolutely like it's been crazy. It's been fun. Uh, even like I know you were taken back by like all of everything that's gone on with Atlanta. And weren't really figured to do much. It was going to be boring, but I would say it's been the furthest thing from and like Calvin Ridley was suspended a whole year, and like that wasn't even the biggest news that's been
it.
done,
Yeah,
right? So it's like
yeah,
it's been adventurous, I would say, for the Falcons this year.
yeah. That whole Calvin Ridley thing felt like it was going to be the biggest thing that happened this offseason for the Falcons, and
Little do we
barely even
know.
remember that, right? It's like, what? Oh yeah, Calvin Ridley's got suspended. Yeah, for gambling.
Yeah,
Yeah, that happened.
yeah.
But we'll talk a little bit more with Adam here about the draft strategy, because obviously we're a week away, as most of you guys are listening to this from night 1 of the NFL draft, and we'll sort of go, I guess maybe we'll go back and forth, or maybe we'll be in 100% agreement on whether or not the Falcons should employ the best player available strategy in this upcoming draft. But before we get there, guys, speaking of being a week away from the draft, of course, Locked On Podcast Network is going to have you covered for all 3 nights with live coverage of every pick. And you'll hear from the various Locked On hosts throughout the nights and days, on Saturday included, on sort of the impact of each and every pick. And of course, you can find that on YouTube. You can find that on Facebook at Locked On NFL Draft. And of course, to get you geared up for that, this week still going on is the Ultimate Mock Draft, which you can find on your preferred podcast app, where we go through each pick in the first round. And for those teams that aren't even having first round picks, they'll get their choice of sort of their day 2 options in this Ultimate Mock Draft. And that's running all week long, again, on your preferred podcast platform. Just search Ultimate NFL Mock Draft 2022, and you will be able to find it. And guys, speaking of the draft, once the draft is over, you got to get back to your lives, your wives, your girlfriends, your mothers, and whatnot. And with Mother's Day coming up, you want to get that special gift for all the time that you guys ignored her over these couple of weeks. And if you want to find that special gift for this special someone, of course, you should head on over to BlueNile.com, and they'll help you find the perfect gift that will fit your budget. Make Mother's Day memorable and celebrate that special someone with something enduring like diamond earrings, elegant tennis bracelets, birthstone pendants, and so much more at BlueNile.com. This Mother's Day, give mom something she'll treasure forever with fine jewelry at BlueNile.com. And Locked On Sports listeners get $50 off $500. This podcast exclusive is only good through Mother's Day, so use the code Locked On at checkout. That's Locked On. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging so that they won't give away what's inside. So shop stress-free and find your forever peace by going to BlueNile.com today. So we're here with Adam Holloway of ATB Falcons, and he's going to be talking with us a little bit about the pros and cons of the best player available strategy in the draft. I've been on record the last couple of days being like, I don't know if the Falcons should be fully committed to best player available because I still feel like they haven't really addressed their two primary needs this offseason, which is the offensive and defensive lines. And so I would much rather prefer the Falcons go with a best trench player available sort of strategy. But I'm curious, Adam, where do you sort of stand? I know you're a big fan of some of these, I guess, non-traditional picks, particularly in round one, like safety or some of these other positions. So where do you sort of stand on the Falcons employing a best player available and really being strict with that, or just should they sort of manipulate it a little bit, like I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, like if it's me, like, yeah, I definitely would waver to like BPA at positional need. Like I think a little bit Thomas Dimitroff did when he was here, so to speak. But yeah, I think fortunately for us that I think BPA is going to end up being an O-line or D-line pick, and I've seen us like linked to those positions all draft cycle. And you know, there was a curious one yesterday from Trigger, I think from Good Morning Football. He said Atlanta's like truly locked into BPA, and I think one that set everybody off was receiver, and I think that would be a little bit frustrating pick for like a lot of people in the fan base. And they're like, how is that BPA? But I think people think BPA is like mine and yours BPA, but like obviously Atlanta's like, you know, if they deem Drake London as like the next Mike Evans or whatever they think it is, like regardless of what you and I think of that situation, that's the process. But yeah, I would deviate away from it if it was for me. But for BPA, I do like Kyle Hamilton. I think he fits the scheme very well. I talked about it today, just like when we're playing that cover one, and you know he's down in the box, or even when he's playing like grabbing in the hole. In the Tampa 2, because I know Eric Harris was doing that a lot last year. I like that style for him. Not to say that he can't play deep third, but I just think he's like more impactful around the box, kind of like Derwin James is. So I mean, in terms of BPA, I definitely I like this strategy. And I think when you're Atlanta, like I've been saying, like you kind of just need to hit on these players. And I think even last time when I was on Locked On, I was saying like, in 5 years, we just got to know that the guy that we pick at 8 this year is a guy that's going to be a cornerstone piece for us. So whether that, like, regardless if me and you think receiver is a bad choice, if we draft that guy and he ends up being a top 10 receiver, then at least we got some return out of that, regardless of like if that's how you and me would pick that. At least we hit on the pick, so to speak, and it wasn't a big miss, because you miss on 8, you're not, so to speak, you're not dead in the water, but it's a big downfall, right? So yeah, I definitely I do like the BPA pick. I just hope my BPA and their BPA align, and it's like Kyle Hamilton. But I seen a mock draft the other day, and Evan Neal was a pick. I think we can all agree. Like, I feel like Evan Neal would probably be the best case scenario. I know you waver on Kayvon Thibodeau. So I don't know who your defensive pick would be, like defensive line pick. I know you say trenches, but maybe Jermaine Johnson, I think. But I think we can all agree Evan Neal probably would maybe be that guy that we're all kind of hoping for if BPA goes how we all want it to, right?
Yeah, I'm on Team Aquano.
You did say that today. You did say that. So do you not like Evan Neal, or is it?
No, I do like Evan Neal.
Okay.
I just love Aquano a little bit more. That's all.
I think Aquano is going to go high, man. I really feel like he's going to go over Evan Neal, and I don't know. I personally like Evan Neal more. I definitely see why people love Aquanu. He's a nasty dude. He's just a nasty, nasty dude. And when we're running the outside zone stuff like we do, like Aquanu definitely fits that mold. But Evan Neal to me is just like, and I was trying to watch Trevon Walker, and he's just out there chopping his arm down when he's trying to get long arm. That's just my kind of offensive tackle. It's just nasty. I just love it. I just like those technical, like little things that you have to slow down the tape for. So yeah, I know that wavered from your BPA question, but I definitely I just hope my BPA and the Falcons BPA align pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just one of those things where, like, let's say the Falcons take Kyle Hamilton in the first, and then they get like Breece Hall and George Pickens in round 2, and then they get like Jelani Woods in round 3 or whatever. And like those are all good players, but like part of me just sits there and goes like, are any of those guys really going to help you win football games in the near future? Because going back to what I was saying, like, I think Pro Football Focus ranked our offensive line like 27th best in the NFL last year, and we know we had the worst pass rush in the NFL. And it's like, well, you can have all these great skill position players, but like if everybody's just kicking your butt in the trenches, like you're not going to win any games. So like it's a little frustrating for me now that we're in the second offseason. And again, I know we're in, some people call it year 0 of a rebuild or year 1 of a rebuild, and you're right. Like I can't be mad at those picks because you're getting good players. Like I can't be mad at the team acquiring good players, but you do wonder, like, can these players help you win games? Or are we going to still be talking next offseason about, hey, we need to fix this offensive line, we need to fix this pass rush, and yeah, we got these great skill position players, but unless we can do those things, so that's where I'm kind of torn on best player available, where I can't be mad at the team taking good players, even if they're not necessarily positions that are going to really move the needle for some of the weaker parts of your roster. But at the same time, like, I'm not going to sit here and say, reach on guys just because they, like reach on, I don't know. I know some people wouldn't say this is a reach, but like Tyler Linderbaum, at 8 or something like that, who's a good player, but like, I don't think he's solving your offensive line issues. He's helping move the needle forward, but like, so I don't know. I don't have a definitive take. I think I'm going to be, have mixed feelings regardless of what the Falcons do on draft night. And I think that's just the way it has to be, right? Like you can't be completely happy, or you can't be completely upset on the draft. You just kind of have to wait and see, right?
Yeah, and I think BPA also plays into like long-term vision. Like, you know what I mean? Like these guys are scouting like probably next year already, and they're already forecasting next year's free agents and stuff. And obviously the NFL has more intel than us than, the average fan and stuff like that. So I mean, if they're prospecting that player X, Y, and Z are gonna come available next year, so therefore they know they have a ton of money and they're gonna throw it at them. Maybe they're like, hey, we know we're gonna be able to be and play for this guy. Let's go get our skill position guy now, and then we'll deal with that later. Because I think what gets lost, and I see this a lot with mock drafts now, it's like they'll trade back to like 20 and have like 15 picks, and then it's just like position need, position need, position need, position need. And it's like, I really feel like if we're just going BPA and then we go by Terry Fontenot's way, like he's really gonna fill in free agency, and we'll finally hope, like, I mean, next year we have $130 million. I hope we're some sort of player in free agency. I know you've been banging the table for like them to play in free agency now for like 2 off seasons. But I mean, like $130 million obviously makes you a player in free agency. So I mean, I feel like the long-term vision gets lost with a lot of people. So I think just in perspective, that's where I'm at. And I think partially why I'm not a trade back guy is I'm firmly a stick and pick kind of player in like when it comes to drafts. I don't like acquiring like 16 guys, and like I don't even like doing mock drafts that deep. That's why I try to stick to 5 rounds and that's it. And we keep acquiring like 2nd and 3rd round picks. I'm like, it's too much. So yeah, I think long-term vision is important. And like I know you struggle to see like long-term vision. I do too. I don't know where the heck this thing's going either. I hope it works out, but I mean, I'm just hoping there is a long-term vision, and like this is like, okay, we're going BPA this year, and then we got our needs that we want to address next year in free agency. And then, like I know me, I'm pretty sure you are in the same let's push quarterback into next year train, and hopefully we put all our chips into that wagon next year. But we'll see, I guess.
When you say push quarterback next year, I was just thinking of, having visions of Carson Strong dropping back to pass this year for the Atlanta Falcons. So,
I I think I think that's the pick at 8. I have a lot of commitments draft night to come on and do like different shows of like my thoughts on picks. If they pick quarterback, I think I will put those shows off for the night. I don't think I'll be able to give a full blown explanation as to why we picked that guy.
all right.
Yeah.
So, speaking of picking guys, we'll pick Adam's brain on some of the guys that he would like to see this team pick that he could go on these live draft shows and talk about, and we'll get into that as we continue today's Locked On Falcons. But guys, want to thank you for making Locked On Falcons your first listen each and every day, and for your second listen, why not check out the Locked On Sports Atlanta podcast family, where Locked On Sports Atlanta has 3 new shows covering all of Atlanta sports, not just the Falcons, the Hawks, the Bulldogs, etc. You can get all the sports, including the Braves. And of course, there's 3 shows with 3 great hosts: A to Z with Mark Zeno, Hitting Hard with John Chuckery, and ATL Day Ones with Jarvis Davis and Tanitra Baptiste. And you can find them all on the Locked On Sports Atlanta podcast feed, all available on the same podcast platforms that you check out Locked On Falcons, as well as on YouTube. And speaking of Atlanta sports, Hawks going not so strong, but they're doing their thing. The Braves are trying to do their thing as well. And if you want to get in on that action, why not head to betonline.net, the number one source for all your sports betting needs, from podcasts to the latest odds, contests, and player props. You name it all, BetOnline has it all. And it's not just basketball, it's not just baseball. BetOnline even has you covered for boxing, UFC, golf, hockey, esports, your favorite Vegas casino games, and of course, the 2022 NFL draft props. No better place to put your money where your mouth is and say, if you think Malik Willis is going to go in the top 3 picks, then you can put money on that. If you think Kayvon Thibodeau is going to fall out of the top 10, you can put money on that. All of that and more is available at betonline.net. BetOnline, where the game starts. So, wrapping up today's Locked On Falcons here with Adam Holloway. We've talked a little bit about best player available. We talked about Deebo Samuel trade rumors. Now let's get to the thing that I know you love talking about, which is, some players that you really hope the Falcons get, the quote unquote your guys segment of today's episode. So, Adam, I'll give you the floor and, go on day 1, day 2, whenever. Some guys that you're really hoping that the Falcons can target in this draft.
Well, day 1, definitely Garrett Wilson. Yeah, I'm all in. I think he's the next Jamar Chase. No, I'm just joking. I just thought I had to poke the bear. OSU, I had to come on and say that. I do like Garrett Wilson, but not to Atlanta, fortunately. I do like Kyle Hamilton. First round, definitely Kyle Hamilton. I love that fit. Jermaine Johnson's a freak. He's an absolute bully. He's a guy that I would definitely want to try to build my defensive line around. I like his style. When he knocked Darian Kennard on his behind there in the Senior Bowl, that's my kind of vibe. I definitely like a guy that's going to knock around some heads. Day 2, I don't know if he's going to be there, but if we miss out on Kyle Hamilton, Lewis Cine playing that like, you want to talk about a guy that's going to play that robber role and just knock heads loose. I'm pretty sure Lewis Cine's going to see a few ejections in his days here in the NFL, because God, like, he just man, he's my kind of safety, but I just don't know if he's going to last long in this league with all these ejections that you might see, because he's a headhunter, and I love it. Those are the kind of guys that, the defense as a whole, like when you jack up a dude underneath on a slant or something, everybody's just piping up for that. That's my kind of guy. Another guy I absolutely love. He has no business going in the second round, but due to where he plays football, and I know people scout helmets and all that good stuff, but he might be there due to that reason. Trump's from UConn, nose tackle, absolute just dominant. Like the one thing I wrote down about him is Enox. Like you cannot move that dude. He's obviously on UConn. He's the guy. So they were like duo blocking him. They're sending 3 guys. They're chipping him. It did not matter. He was just a man amongst boys, and he was just a dominant player. A guy I'll throw in, and me and you've had discussions about this guy. But since he put on weight, and I like his film a little bit, I want to see him a little bit more in the run game. I think he can be developed, but definitely in this front, I like him as Drake Jackson from USC. I know you say he's not the real Drake, and it's kind of weird that 2 Drakes are on the same team and they're named Drake, but it is what it is. But Drake Jackson's a stud of a player. I think he's got some high upside. He's got unreal bend, and if you can keep that bend at 270 pounds and pop some power in those hands of his, that would be something I'd definitely be interested in. From the film I've watched, super bendy. He can twist and contort his body into different ways. And he's one thing about pass rush is you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And I think Drake Jackson really fits that mold. He really he'll move his body any which way to try to get to the quarterback. And that's one thing I really, really like about him. Third round, I think this is kind of where running backs start coming in. I know James Cook is a guy that I like. I'm talking like schematically fit. I really feel like on the outside zone, he's a guy that runs with his hair on fire. I really like James Cook. I think he adds like a bunch of elements that we don't have. Just a guy that can get to the boundary and hit a home run. A guy that can, take that takes like a Texas or an angle route and can take that to the house as well, or just work the flat and make guys miss. He's a really exciting player. I missed a guy in day 2, and I don't know where he'll fall, but George Pickens. I've read that he might go in the 3rd. Like apparently the league is lower on George Pickens. I don't know why. Maybe Aaron knows why. He's kind of been here. But I've heard and I've read that he may go day 3. I would love that. That would be really good for Atlanta. He's that big body. I mean, the way he plays, you can almost play him as a Z receiver. But he has the body for an X receiver. I like the importance that he plays with in the run game too. Like he's a little bit physical. He's a little arrogant, and those are my kind of like, I like tone setter kind of players, and Pickens is that kind of guy. But I also like Calvin Austin. I don't think me and you have had this conversation about him, but he's a guy. I actually like him better than Wan'Dale. And I know our buddy Eric might have something to say about that, but Calvin Austin's I think he's this year's Elijah Moore, just a unique route runner, can take the top off of defense. I'd be curious to see how Arthur would want to use a player like that. Like I really feel like he represents like a lot of explosive plays that this team's missing. Like I don't even remember the last time we had an explosive play, something that we're missing. So I know that's a segue into a guy that me and you have major disagreements about, is David Bell. I like him. I think he's gonna fall to about the 4th just because he's not an explosive receiver. I felt like Purdue didn't do him any favors trying to use him as a jump ball guy. I really feel like he's just like a kind of intermediate chain mover guy. I know that doesn't get you too excited, Aaron, but he's for me. I feel like not everybody can be Tyreek Hill, right? We need a couple, Byron Pringles, I guess, guys in the middle of the field there that can work the sticks a little bit. And he's kind of play that Michael Thomas tight end / running back role for us, So I really feel like David Bell could be a guy that could fit as an X receiver for us, but he also has a little bit of jump ball production too. A guy I really, really like is Isaiah Thomas from Oklahoma. He fits that 3-man rotation when you're playing on the D line. He can line up as a 5-tech and give you some juice there. But he can also line up on the edge and can still win consistently on the outside shoulder of an offensive tackle. So those are, I feel like I ramble. I don't know if that's what you want, but I feel like I just was rambling on prospects that I like. I like Agabania from UCLA too, late round nose tackle. I feel like we'll add a nose tackle. I know Vincent Taylor that we just had. I feel like he's going to play a little bit more DN, kind of like what Brandon Williams was doing in those over and under fronts that Dean Pease was doing. I think it's like 2-2-I. on the D line there. So I feel like nose tackle, we just have really Anthony Rush. And I think there's a couple practice squad guys. I would like to see them add like a pass rushing nose tackle because I think Taquan Graham was doing that last year. I don't love him there. He can do it, but I don't love him there. I like him more as a 5 tech. So those are just a few guys. Hopefully I didn't put you to sleep on my David Bell spiel.
No, you did great. I appreciate you, rattling off 28 names. So yeah, that'll give the listeners something to sink their teeth in, and certainly some names. A couple of names there like David Bell that not a lot of people have talked about
Yeah.
for the Falcons. So that's a pretty solid list.
Mhm.
Although I might disagree with you on a couple of those names, but it's fine. Um,
I gotta hear about it in the
I
spaces.
remember talking about Drake Jackson months ago, and I didn't like him like when he was getting like first round buzz, but like if he's in late second, early third or whatever, like that's pretty good value at that point in time. So
I feel like these edge rushers are so funny. Like I feel like they've fluctuated so much. You've gotten late first round guys that have fallen to the third, and like third round guys that have come up to the second and first. Like Boy Mafi is talking about being put back into the back end of the first round there. I like him, and I think he's an athletic freak, but um, his pass rush tape is just not good. Like this is where I mean, like this is where we're at in the NFL. It's just like we'll take athletic freaks and we will make them work, and then that's how people get fired, I guess.
pretty much.
Trayvon Walker.
Yep. This class is going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting looking, 4 or 5 years from now. Who are the pass rushers that actually lived up to the hype or whatever? And just my luck, it'll be Thibodeau, and then I'll have to delete all these episodes where I was like, he's not that good. But you know how it goes.
I also think that's the fun thing about this year is like I don't think in like all of the mock drafts that are done, like I don't think there's a consensus top 10. And I think that's very unique and it's fun. As a fan, it's nerve-wracking because you just know that there's going to be 4 defensive ends and 3 offensive tackles gone within 7 picks, and Atlanta's going to be stuck there with Kenny Pickett. Then we're gonna have to take him. So like, you know what I mean? Like I think it's unique, but who knows? Who knows how it's gonna go?
Okay. Well, speaking of taking Kenny Pickett, we'll get into that on tomorrow's episode with Mark Schofield, talking a little bit more about these quarterbacks. But Adam, I appreciate you joining me, sharing your insight into these topics. Let the people know where they can find more of your stuff.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Damsky32. Running some spaces, getting in arguments with Aaron about receivers, doing all that fun stuff.
There you go. All right, my friend. Appreciate you joining me. And for those listeners that want to provide their feedback, of course, you can do so if you want to hit up Adam and tell him why he's right or wrong. Of course, you can do so at Damsky32. Of course, me, you can check me out at Locked On Falcons on Facebook, on Twitter. You can send an email to lockedonfalcons@mail.com. You can leave a comment here on Locked On Falcons. And again, want to thank everyone that makes Locked On Falcons their first listen each and every day, and always recommend your second listen. Locked On Braves, Locked On Hawks, see what's going on with those teams. Locked On Bulldogs, if you're done with the struggles of other Atlanta teams and you want to just talk about a good championship caliber team, you can check that out. And of course, Locked On Sports Atlanta has you covered for all of Atlanta sports, Atlanta United, and much more. So you can check out all those shows on your preferred podcast platform, as well as Locked On NFL Draft and Locked On NFL if you want to get more insight into sort of Deebo Samuel. I know Eric Crocker, one of the co-hosts of Locked On 49ers, who's also the co-host of Locked On NFL Draft, probably has some thoughts on these Deebo Samuel trade rumors. So go check out all of those shows on your preferred podcast platform, including on YouTube. So that's going to do it for us here, guys. Appreciate it. Till then. Oh, Adam, I think we're having a little bit of technical difficulties here. Of course. I'm not getting any audio from you, my friend. Always great. Your internet connection is bad. Hold on, let me see if I can get you back in here. I'm gonna love editing this one.
And like literally as you were talking, I'm so sorry. That's my fault.
No problem. So
That was
Adam.
a disaster. I'm so sorry.
It's fine. I'm gonna have to edit it anyway. So it's
Okay,
okay. Well, what I thought was going to be a 15-minute edit is now going to be, an hour-long edit. But hey, whatever.
I'm sorry.
It's at this point. Who cares? Keep me on my toes. But what was I asking? Oh yeah. Welcome back to the show. And what are your thoughts on all these Deebo Samuel trade rumors?